So a little bit of a disclaimer, as always, before we start tonight's program. This is a reminder that this episode will address topics related to addiction. And given that this is an Ask Me Anything, it's going to talk about all the addictions we've talked to up to now. So viewer discretion is advised. We remind you to consult your doctor, your mental health professional, your outreach group, your sponsor or specialist before adopting any change to your dietary, physical, and or mental health regime. If you're looking for options to go down the road in detecting and treating your addiction, contact SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, at 1-800-662-4357. Again, that's 1-800-662-4357. Or go to samhsa.gov. That's SAMHSA.gov. The service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and is a confidential, free information service for individuals and family members facing addictions, amongst other mental health and or substance use disorders. One other thing. The link below, the phone number, is for eCam. We're going to take a live guest tonight to talk about their journey, the roadblocks that have been in their way, and how they've overcome those things. So this is an open line tonight. It's an Ask Me Anything, but it's also to ask you whatever you want to ask and talk about whatever you want to talk about. So with all of that, let's begin. We've discussed so many things on the Venture Forward over the last month and a half that it's now time for an Ask Me Anything, or a live Q&A, or whatever you want to call this. But we're going to talk about alcoholism and overeating and gambling and co-addiction, codependency, all of it. Your questions, your comments, that is the cusp of this show today, a live Q&A, Ask Me Anything. This is the Venture Forward. Good evening once again. I am John Venturini, and I am a recovering addict of overeating, alcoholism, and compulsive gambling, with 560 days of sobriety, 242 days over compulsive gambling, and 662 days of tracking my food. And for that, I am down 277 pounds. I am glad to be with you tonight. And I am glad to see that folks are joining us for this edition of the Venture Forward as we do a live Q&A, Ask Me Anything. So let's say hi to some of you, or all of you. And start off with Sarah. Hey Sarah, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Marilyn, good afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great afternoon over by you. And Aub. Yes, there are people out there. There are people around here. There are people coming here to the broadcast tonight, and it's good to see you too, Aub, for sure. And a quick reminder that all puts out there is hit that like button for me. Like, comment, subscribe. I'd appreciate that for sure. So let's rewind back to October 15th, back to mid-October, and the beginning of this venture forward. The sense is that I've basically have come to the realization that this story needed to be told and has been told in anecdotes on and off for the better part of 23 months. But I think having this forum, having this opportunity to share the story with you has been incredibly powerful for me, and I hope it's been incredibly powerful for you as we've done the last 15 episodes and we're continuing to do this going into the new year. I think the first thing I will say, as I said on the last episode on Tuesday, and as I said in the beginning of the show, is that my chief addiction is overeating. My chief addiction is basically my relationship with food, and just everything basically resonated from that and all the other toxic behavior that is in my life, for sure. Toxic behavior that I have basically whittled away because I know it was holding me back. These were the roadblocks that held me back in life, and I needed to stop them once and for all. So the overeating required diet, required discipline there. The alcoholism required one night where I totally hit a bottom. I mean, it was a bottom where I drank way too much, more than I ever drank before, and I realized from that point forward, from the way I felt for the next week or so, that if I'm going to lose such a massive amount of weight, that is not going to serve me well. We fast forward through 2019. We fast forward through a couple of things that happened in my life. A couple of things have changed and whatnot. We get into 2020 before all the craziness began. And it basically became something where I needed to take care of something else. I was a compulsive gambler. And I'll talk about that in a second, but we have a question from Sarah. I'd like to know the ways in which you feel doing the venture forward has helped me. Thank you, Sarah, for that question. I think from the first sort of thought that I have is it gives me, basically accountability. I think telling my story, being very frank about my story, being very transparent about my story, has been very, very important to me. Especially given the craziness of this year and as surreal and just, I guess lunacy would be one thing, but I think it's also just nothing doesn't seem to faze me anymore. Because if you watch the news, then something else will happen, right? So, I mean, it's like, okay, no more surprises. That said, and the uncertainty of things, doing this where I am accountable, I'm talking about my story, about how I'm trying to get healthy, has been very important. And I hope, and I know from a few people that I've talked to, that it's helped some of you. And I'm very thankful. I'm very blessed for that, for sure. But yeah, that's some of the ways. I think the other thing is, and Sarah, you'll know about this real well, is the fact that I've wanted to live stream for a very long time. I didn't know the right appropriate way to get into live streaming until I had a story to tell. And I started putting these journal notes together, starting writing the notes about this journey since February of 2019 to now. And the things that I've gone through and the things that I've realized, okay, these are the roadblocks that are holding me back. I think getting that to thought, getting that on paper, but also presenting that, whether it was the work that you and I, Sarah, did for Live Every Day in August, that we did through Live Streaming Pros, Lori Petrucci, David Foster, Mark, you've done Lita as well. I think having the ability to be very open, honest, but giving my story, being vulnerable, but being vulnerable, I guess, in the most healthiest way possible, I think has done a lot for me. it's done a lot for my confidence. It's done a lot for me to realize, okay, I got a story to tell. And I got a platform to stand on. And I'm going to stand on that platform because if it's working for me and I've learned a thing or two, I want to help as many people as I want to. I want to help all of you. I want to help everybody because there's no reason to keep this bottled in. We talk about the triangle. We talk about what we know from our anonymous groups. Service. Service is one of the major components of that three-legged triangle. And doing this is a service. It's telling my story, but also hoping that a light bulb goes over someone's head and saying, okay, this is not serving me well anymore. I'm going to do something about that. I think, in a nutshell, that's what this has really done to help me. And I sure as heck hope it has done a lot to help others, for sure. A few more people have joined us. Sue, good evening. Hope you're doing well. Mr. Stalinsky, hope you're doing well as well. Merck was the guest on the very first episode of the Venture Forward back in October, telling his story. And Merck, I couldn't thank you enough for what you did that night, and also being a really great friend of mine, and certainly to take the words from LT and Felice for a second, we do recover better together for sure. Merck, it's great to see you tonight. So, there's a question I was thinking of today, and I wanted to share it with all of you. And I know the major sort of things that I've overcome in the last 23 months, but I know there are other things I have to work on. And I know that I don't talk about the days that I've been tobacco-free because, quite frankly, that's one of the last sort of addictions that I hold on to. And granted, I'm not seriously addicted to cigars and cigarettes as I used to a long time ago. I think, for me, cigar smoking is like once every 3 or 4 weeks now, probably once a month. So it's not a very common occurrence. And I'm not really big on cigarettes, never have been. So cigars have basically been that sort of outlet. But then we look at what we're dealing with right now in 2020 in a virus that has affected so many, that has killed so many, that basically roots on our internal systems, our lungs, our venal systems, not only with the lungs and the pulmonary systems, but our cardiovascular as well. And there really is no reason for me to keep on doing it. Although every now and then I have done it over the last few months, and that's just being open and honest with you. I know come the first of the year, I know it's going to be a hard line, no. And to be honest with you, I haven't had a cigar in like 3.5 weeks. So it's not like I'm going out and smoking. Funny story. When I was in college, I used to part-time over a cigar shop. No joke. And when I had a shift on Saturday afternoons during home football Saturdays, it'd be 10 a.m. all the way to midnight. And I think over the cusp of 14 hours, I think I was good for at least 4 or 5 cigars, which is not healthy. Oh, God, not healthy at all. This was back when I was in my, 18, 19, 20, 21, over there. And again, very nasty habit. It's something where my dad, God rest his soul, when we were cleaning his apartment when he had the fatal heart attack and died back in July of 2002, or July 2003 rather. Sorry, July 2003. I don't know why I was thinking 2002 for a second, but July of 2003 is when he had the fatal heart attack. When we were cleaning out his apartment, the walls were yellow because he was at a point in his life where he was smoking, I would have to say, on the better part of 2 to 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Marlboro, menthol, Reds. as the kids like to call them, cowboy killers. That was my dad's cigarette of choice. Not to mention that he was diabetic. Not to mention he had a weight problem. He was smoking that much. Now, if we want to talk about the biobehavioral reasons, we want to talk mental for a second, let's do that. 10 months prior, his girlfriend passed away. And I think he was just at a very bad point of his life where he was going to gravitate to the things he was going to gravitate to just to get by to the next day, to the next day, to the next day, until his body failed him. And it's a very hard thing to say about your own dad, but that's what happened to my dad. You want to fast forward the clock 9 years? My uncle passed away from cancer. And he was a major cigar smoker. So again, I'm citing reasons on why I shouldn't be smoking. And yet, even though it's not a big amount, I have. Not as much as I did back in college. Not as much as I did back in the 2000s. But I did. And I know that it's a hard thing to quit. Especially even if you are the occasional smoker. It's just very hard. But it's definitely something that's top of my list. Top of my list, rather. For 21, for sure. Let's go to some comments. Mark says, thank you. We definitely recover better together, my friend. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. And Sue says, I discovered that one cig wasn't enough. Maybe one cigar every 3 to 4 weeks, the same. Yeah, the thing is, for me, I thought a cigar was something a bit different because you weren't inhaling it, but it's just as much a problem. It's nicotine, it's tobacco, it's the chemicals that are in there. Now, granted, we can go into debates for days about, okay, well, what's the difference between a premium hand-rolled cigar that was rolled in the Dominican Republic versus that of a Philly blunt that was made in a factory? We could talk about that for days. Either way, the way I look at it, still a problem. And I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to be something I stick to. But I know sure as heck I'm going to give it a better shot at it. And I would definitely say that over the course of the last 2 years, with the weight loss journey and the sobriety journey, I certainly haven't smoked, or certainly am not smoking as much as I used to. That said, I could do better. And that's just being flat out, keeping it 100. Sarah says, I grew up with a serious cigarette addiction amongst other self-medications. The smell of cigarettes make me literally nauseous. Yes. Yeah, I it's the thing that I know that I haven't smoked a lot of cigars, even if I'm smoking them in other places, because when I come back, my clothes smell like cigars. Like I don't like the smell either. I like to think that I don't smoke cigars that are that repulsive, but when it repulses the person that smoked them, that should tell you something. So yeah, it's more the reason why I'm trying to put that at bay for sure. Paul, good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Just got done with work, looked at the clock and thought, oh good, I can catch John's show. Paul, you caught it on a great night. We're doing an Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions, comments, you could call in. The eCam link is below. It should be pinned on the YouTube, and it should be up on the Facebook comments as well. Good to see you. Aub says, I vape. Stopped smoking on October 6, 2018 after 40 years of smoking. Oh my God, Aub. May I ask, how much were you smoking before you quit? I'm curious because the level of nicotine that we all was basically making as part of our routine has a lot to tell the story. And Aub, I'm curious about what that number is. Aub says, I will not give up nicotine. I totally understand that for sure. Sarah says, addict, not addiction. My mother was the addict. Fair enough. Fair enough. Sue says, at least it's a thought. I have 20 months smoke-free, and it is tough, but it's programs like yours that get me through. Sue, I'm really glad that you're watching, and I'm really glad that you're getting that sort of power by watching this. And again, the transparency, the ability to be honest, the ability of talking about what I'm going through, what you're all going through, I think is what makes programs like my own work, makes programs like Recovering Addicts, over James, Nicole, all of them. It's what makes us work. You combine that with the power of what we've learned in live streaming pros, and we have something where we can touch so many people. So it's an honor and pleasure to do this. And it's been an incredible sort of blessing to get to know all of you, for sure. Sarah says, good for you, Ob. And Ob says, pouch of 50 grams every 3 days, or 1 pack and a half per day for 40 years, and have not died yet. But booze, bottle a day, and a 1/4 ounce of dope every couple of days. That's addiction. That's addiction. And that's basically the sort of stacking of addictions on top of each other. I think the thing is this. If I think about the things that I gravitated to with cigars, I was never big on cigarettes. Now, the cigarettes, when I did smoke cigarettes, were not the Marlboros. I smoked like Nat Sherman Black and Gold. So they weren't the sort of mass-produced cigarettes you'd find at the convenience store. Nevertheless, not great. And the thing is, I know that when I don't have a cigar after smoking for a while, and going back a few months, I know that there's a behavioral change to that. So there is addiction. There are chemicals to it that say, okay, you want something, you want to gravitate to your addiction. It's no good. It's no good. I know personally, I don't like the way I feel from a breathing standpoint. I don't like the way I feel from just a health standpoint after doing it, which is more the reason why I'm on smoking it. That said, it's one of the last on the list, but there might be a point where I gravitate back, and I just need to remember this conversation for sure. You don't really have an opportunity to just be very forthright and frank about these sort of things until, I don't know, a show like this. So I'm really glad to be having this conversation with you for sure. Paul has a question. Do you like hot food, or have you turned to it? I was watching a show and many of the hot food eating competitors, and they really got into the hot foods while overcoming addiction. Yes. I love hot food. Whether you're talking about hot ones, there are a couple other ones out there. There are other ones I like, but I think of, and his name is escaping me right now. He does a show. Hot Ones is a show about wings, and he has celebrities on every week, and they eat hot wings and stuff. It's incredible. And yeah, I do like hot wings. I eat hot wings because, let's face it, chicken wings are fatty foods. But yes, I do gravitate to hot foods. I do believe in putting Tabasco sauce on an egg white omelet. I'm big on the hot stuff for sure. Paul says many of them shared the same idea. It helped them overcome the other addictions. Yeah. It's what we call in internal family systems, we call it firefighting. So you take one addiction and you try to basically replace it by an addiction that is not as nefarious as the one preceding it. And I could definitely see hot food serving as a beneficial firefighter, within reason, of course, of other addictions. So, Paul, thank you for pointing that out for sure. Ob says, I've been trying to go live on Facebook and can't figure it out. Let's talk about that off this episode, because there are services out there like Restream. I'm big on Restream, that will allow you to not only do your live stream on, say, Facebook or YouTube, but also stream it to other services. I think they're up to a list of 35 or 40 as far as the different platforms you can restream to. So it's not hard. It's just a question of trying to make sure you have accounts on those services, but then also be able to go ahead and do it. And doing a couple of test streams and making sure that, you're able to do it. But yeah, it's once you have it figured out, Aubrey, it's not terrible at all. I think, truth be told, I think the one streaming service that I have been having difficulty with, and you might be saying, well, John, why the heck are you trying to do venture forward over there, is Twitch. I've been live on Twitch now for about 2 weeks, and there's been no traction whatsoever. And I'm going to be absolutely honest with you guys. I think it might be a problem with how it's configured. So I have to do some digging on that over the weekend and seeing if there's a better way to that. The other thought I had was I definitely want to start doing stuff on Periscope and LinkedIn. And that's going to probably be the next couple of services I'm looking to spreading the venture forward on. LinkedIn probably first, and then Periscope. And I know that trying to get a LinkedIn approved account is a bit of a process. So I'm sure the sooner that I start that sort of mindset, the better off I'm going to be. Paul says, it was an interesting connecting thread. Yeah, without question. Sherry, how you doing over in Australia? Don't be sorry that you're late. I'm glad you're here for sure. Ob says, my buddies always wonder if I'm smoking a rolled up ciggy or smoking dope, and I would ask, what's wrong with your nose? That's a comeback. It's a comeback for sure. Let's see. Ob says, won't be making it tonight. In-laws are coming late. Dang it. In-laws are coming over. It's, yeah. And I got something to say about that in a couple minutes. There's been a bit of breaking news that happened here in Pennsylvania in the last hour and a half. Sarah might know about it. We'll share it. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Sherry says, hey, y'all. Sarah says, if you study acupuncture, you know there are specific reasons why recovering addicts would gravitate to hot foods. Yeah. Sherry says, sorry, John, couldn't find a picture next time. No worries. Take your time. You know where to find me. Paul says, oh, firefighting. Interesting. Yeah. Internal family systems. If you think about a lot of the major sort of forms of personal therapy, you go into an ACW, LCW, psychotherapist, psychiatrist, there are a lot more therapists that are gravitating back to internal family systems, which is something that's been around for a while, long time actually. But there are some concepts as far as how the mind basically puts things in boxes and trying to prevent the mind from opening up all the boxes at one time and becoming one with your thought and keeping everything in sort of a linear flow. I'll tell you, I'll probably be doing an episode on IFS at some point. I do like IFS a lot. Have I taken cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT? Yes, of course. And there are others that are prevailing out there. But for me, internal family systems has resonated to the top. And it's not necessarily a question of, familial abuse. It's not really that. There's mechanics that go back to finding your inner child. What would young John say about something? What would young whoever would say? Anything. Trying to figure out where was that sort of breaking point on why you're adopting a behavior that was not serving you well. And if you take that mindset, a lot of things start opening up. So I definitely want to spend an episode on IFS at some point, for sure. Ob says, you're on Facebook Live or YouTube, John? I'm on both. I'm on Facebook and I'm on YouTube. And I'm also on Twitch, although, God help me if I don't know what's going on with Twitch. There is a Venture Forward Twitch channel where there should be a stream going to Twitch. But if you told me right now there's nothing up there, wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised in the least. So it's definitely something I'm going to have to look into over the weekend. Maybe do a test stream to see if we can figure out what's going on with Twitch. Sherry says research. Yeah. Ob says, I got a few things to say on live with a wink. That could be scary, but yet somewhat interesting. Paul, I'm working on getting you the Twitch link. Hang on one second. Paul, it's basically twitch.tv/the venture forward. So THE venture forward. That's the channel over there. And I'm looking at it now, and yeah, of course, there's nothing over there. So yeah, there must be something misconfigured. I'll definitely take a look at that at some point. Okay, what else is going on here? Okay, not knowing what is Festivus. You mean a Festivus for the rest of us? Yeah, Festivus is basically a holiday made up by the Costanzas on Seinfeld. And they basically wanted to come up with a holiday was not Christmas or not Hanukkah or not any of the others, so Festivus became something. So you turn back the clock into the 90s. That's when you start seeing references to Festivus and the Feat of Strength and the pole and all of that. Probably one of the funniest comedy arcs that show provided in a very long time. Definitely recommend for sure. Paul has found a Twitch channel and is following. Thank you, Paul. I apologize for the fact that there's probably nothing up there. Ob says topics like lip sync, underlying problems, expecting others to follow along others' beliefs when it does not work for them kind of videos. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, if you think about IFS, you think about topics like that, it goes back to a similar sort of thing about, and I'm again, taking full responsibility here, right? I used to play the victim all the time. And I think when the mind gravitates to the idea of, well, you're a victim and you're not trying to do anything about it, well, you're going to keep on pushing yourself back. Nothing good can arise out of that if you keep on being a victim, not trying to find a way around it. Now, do I necessarily have to hit a bottom to start doing something about something? No. In an ideal world, I should be able to find that something is an issue and then work towards fixing it and finding other behaviors to counteract that or do something more healthy with my life. But I'll be honest. If it wasn't for the fact that I was 480 pounds, could barely walk 5 or 10 feet at the Southwest Terminal in Raleigh-Durham Airport, RDU, and basically making a cry to the power upstairs to help me remove the things that have been blocking me, the roadblocks, I don't know if I'd be doing a live stream right now. I don't know if many of you would know me by now, because I'd probably not be in a good place right now. I'd either be in a worse place or probably wouldn't be alive. And that's just God's honest truth. But do we necessarily have to hit a bottom before we have to start, before we can start fixing things? No. If we start realizing that we are in charge of ourselves and we can manifest things that are important for us, whether it's a question of love or abundance or being loved, all three actually, a lot of things can happen. A lot of good things can happen. A lot of strong, powerful things can happen. Sherry reminds me, yes, I do know where to find you. Right back at you. Ob then reminds us all that that's scary. Ob, it's probably scary for most, but I'll be honest, and this is the editorial opinion of the host and producer of this show, not scary for me. But that it's fine. Good evening, Brad. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the show. Hey, Sherry, someone I know. Glad you're here, Brad. Uh, Merck says, welcome, Brad. So glad I haven't met you yet. So glad to meet you. I meant so glad to meet you. Sure, Merck. You know, they tell us not to show every comment, but I'm enjoying this exchange, so don't mind me. Merck says, Aubrey. Aub's laughing. Okay. Aub then says, victimization prevents you from seeing your true self. That's absolutely right, Aub. You know, if you look at everything and say that the world's out to get me or this is out to get me, you're right. You're absolutely right, Aub. But it allows us to be accountable for the things that we do. And it takes a certain mindset to realize, oh, if I'm partaking in these sort of bad behaviors, I know that I'm going to be hurting others in the process. And I wanted to say something about the gambling piece before we end tonight's show. We got plenty to go here, but there are a couple of realizations I wanted to share with you tonight. And in the sense of we're doing an Ask Me Anything, and by all means, if you have a question, put a Q in front of the question, just like Sarah did before. I'm here to answer all your questions because that's what an AMA is all about. But I definitely want to go over a couple of things that became very resonant to me, especially in the last week or so. Aub says, too busy feeling sorry for yourself, not going to make you grow and recover. Yes. You're basically preventing yourself from getting yourself to a better place, or at least getting yourself to a stronger place. Mark, you're my top 10 for being a man of compassion. Aub, I absolutely agree. Mark, you're incredible, and I'm very thankful for your friendship, Aub's friendship, Sarah's friendship, all of your friendship. You guys are incredible. I love you guys a lot. Aub says you're good value. Aub also says, I feel comfortable teasing you and hoping you're all right with that. Mark, of course, Aubrey. If I can't take teasing and being too uptight. Mark knows how to tell a joke or two himself. I like Mark's joke telling. Mark is a hysterically funny man. So let's see. Aub says, yeah, you get a lot of attention for being a victim, and once the victim take notice of how much attention they get, they keep feeling sorry for themselves. It becomes cyclical, Aub. Absolutely. You're on the money. It's sort of, and I don't know if anyone knows what this is, so this is basically a question back to all of you. But the sort of phenomenon that when you are in a state of near depression or depression, that the mind, when it's not in a good place, will gravitate to feeling and sensing other things that make you feel bad, and then just stacking that on top of each other. I know for sure. I know that's something that runs in my family, and I can be honest with you and say that's something that definitely resonated with me for a while. I've gotten a lot better about not doing that. I've also gotten a lot better about detecting it and trying to keep that at bay. But I think the ability, or the sort of nefarious ability to stacking bad things on top of each other causes that to just multiply and multiply and multiply. So, yeah. Paul says, favorite band, song, the audience wants to know. Paul, I have a lot of eclectic tastes as far as music. I think I'm a classic rock guy for sure. I love AC/DC. I love Queen. I love Hall & Oates. Billy Joel. I mean, if I said I didn't love Billy Joel, I wouldn't be allowed to go back to Long Island anytime soon. Bruce Springsteen. Newer music. I try to listen to a lot of pop, try to keep relevant there. It's all over the place. I can listen to rap, country, pop, classic rock, a little bit of metal, all over. Love it all. Sherry's been asking Mark that question for the last few months. Of course, Mark, if you want to answer that question, if you did answer it already, I'll bring that up. But yeah. Brad says, are we reading from a book or just notes? I'm trying to deal with childhood adult issues, so I haven't been here until now, but I'm all attention now. Yes, Brad, it's just notes. At some point, we're going to start talking about, there's one book, if I can get the notes together from the IFS book, I'll talk about what I've read there. Yeah, it's not necessarily a book for tonight's show or the last 14 episodes we've done. It's basically notes from what I've experienced and also research that I've done. But yeah, at some point we'll start talking about books that have been read as far as bolstering that sort of that knowledge too. Great question, Brad. Thank you. Sherry says, just wanted to mention that there are 9 people and 9 likes. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And comment, like, and subscribe if you haven't to. I appreciate it. Brad is supposed to be covering this in live today. Yeah. Sarah says, one of the things about being a victim is the people grow tired of it. Unless, of course, they're perpetrators. It's pretty boring. The one thing I'll add on to that, Sarah, is when your mind is that convoluted, and you're dealing with relationship, you have a strong opportunity of starting to gaslight and reflecting and deflecting it. Which I know for a fact that back in my marriage, there was plenty of gaslighting from both sides. I'm going to just say that. I'm going to keep it honest. Is it a question of narcissism? Yeah, there's a little bit of narcissism in there, sure. Is it a question of potential bipolar? I've never been diagnosed with bipolar. I don't know if my ex was either. But yeah, it's a very slippery slope you can easily go down. And when you add stuff like alcohol to the mix, my God, it becomes ugly. For sure. Thank you for posting that, Sarah. Mark says, I know, Sherry, I still can't pick just one. Same here. All over the place. Sounds like my kind of music, and then she says, just do it. Brad says, Bruce Springsteen is the greatest singer in the E Street Band. It's the greatest band of all time. No one has ever stood the test of time than the boss has. Absolutely. True fact, Brad, and maybe this is maybe I should be ashamed for admitting this. But remember earlier in the year, in the year of calamity that 2020's been, they were talking about murder hornets. The first song that gravitated to my mind was an East Street band called Murder Incorporated. That's how my mind works. I'm sure that's how many of your minds work, but just keeping it 100, right? Mark says, I can't pick just one song. Same here. Ob says, song running through my mind is mainly every little thing she does, every little thing gonna be all right. If I could talk, that would help. It would just help reading comments a bit better. Can you explain that better with the gaslighting? Yeah, I can. I think when you're disillusioned about the problems that have held yourself back, and you're also not getting good vibes off of what your partner is doing, it starts becoming something where you're saying that the other partner is doing everything you're doing. So it is a bit of reflection, or deflection rather. But the gaslighting is just basically amplifying that. And now making up stuff that doesn't exist. That's where the gaslighting really comes into play. Gaslighting is a term that has been getting a lot more airtime, a lot more just attention, because you go to your therapist, you go to your psychiatrist, and they start talking about gaslighting. So yeah, gaslighting was a very big element of that relationship for sure. And again, I I think, as I said in the beginning of this, I'm no angel, far from it. But yeah, that's what gaslighting is. Nothing quite like E Street Live. Absolutely. Billy Joel Live, by the way, incredible. I've seen Billy over at the Jones Beach Amphitheater on Long Island about 2 or 3 times. Oh my God, he's an incredible concert for sure. It's such a great, just a great discography. Just an amount of incredible songs that man has done. Incredible. Brad says, I love it. Such a good song. I actually listen to everything by him and them. Every album, every song. Ob says, my first wife was Queen Gaslighting. She manipulated me into hating my family, and it took 5 years of amends to make towards my immediate family after I left my first wife. There was a lot of that going on here too. Never again. Ob, you said it with never again, in the sense that you start to think about why we get into those relationships for very long periods of time. And is it a lack of self-confidence? Absolutely. Absolutely, there's a lack of self-confidence. But there's also a lot of things that need to be worked out. And as any therapist will tell you, that the mind-body connection is strong, very strong. If there's something wrong with your mind, there's a good chance there's something wrong with your body and vice versa. I sure as heck, as part of this journey the last 2 years, I know sure as heck I'm never going to get myself involved in one of those again. And again, keeping everything 100, I go to therapy to make sure that that's the case. And make sure that there's an outlet for me to go over these things. So, I'm glad you said that, Ob. And I'm sorry about your first wife. Ob said, yes, John, my wife convinced me a lot of things that were delusional. What was going on around me was delusional. And that she was a nutcase. I wouldn't call my ex that. My ex, it's funny. Someone came to me over, it might have been over the last weekend, and just asked me an open and honest question about her. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for her. I do. And I will say this. I do love her. It's just that we grew distant. I think the phrase that comes to mind is you can love someone, but you don't have to be married to them. It's just a really tough thing to say, but it's true. And, that said, I hope she's doing well. I hope she really is doing well. Sarah says she's not a Billy Joel fan. That's okay. You're awesome. So you have one major misstep with... Well, I'm kidding. If you're not a Billy Joel fan, you're not a Billy Joel fan. That's fine. Ob says that's why I like protecting newcomers from those types of people. Yeah, because those kind of people could be very, very detrimental to anyone, especially in recovery. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Ob. Ob says it was because she was the most gorgeous girl in AA, but I got caught up into her web. She was the Black Widow. Yep. And then Ob also says, after being away from her, John, she was mentally unstable, dangerous. Yeah. But going back to something we were talking about before, and understanding what we own to our relationships, whether our relationships with people or things or places, we also have to realize that we have a role in the story. I know I became a compulsive gambler. I knew I had a very bad relationship with food, and I knew that as far as the alcoholism, yeah. Now, can I also say that my ex had a problem with alcohol? Yeah. This is keeping 100, right? But, yeah, it doesn't mean that I should let my world go to crap. Because what's around me is... Because, again, I did it. I was the one eating. I was the one drinking. I was the one gambling. My button was against the video poker machine. It's It's my fault. And no matter what's going on, that's owning what you're doing. Sue says, I think I got to the point of going to AA meetings. Everyone told their stories, and honestly, I had to get to a point of living. Does that make sense? Yes. We don't. I'm going to equate this to a phenomenon that used to happen to me when I was playing video poker. And was I happy playing a little bit? No. I had to play hours upon hours upon hours on end because, again, I had a problem. But I would get almost into a daze. No matter what was going on, no matter how much I was winning or losing or whatnot. And the thing is, when you lose that connection about what's going on in the moment, it's a problem. And the same thing happens with alcohol. The same thing happens with drugs. The same thing happens. Enter addiction. Same thing can happen. Now, are there things that we can do where that sort of daze isn't the worst thing? Yeah, exercising. Going on an elliptical machine. Weight training. All that. It's not necessarily a nefarious sort of relationship. But there are things that we can do that are a lot more toxic, a lot more nefarious, that could cause us much more harm. So it's making an understanding of that and then working from there. I hope that answered your question, Sue. Brad says, I have to deal with children. Stepping away for a few. I hope I don't miss the rest of the stream, and I'm not subbed. So I'll be around more often than now. Great to meet you guys. Mark is terrible. Mark, looks like you lost a fan. I don't know what that's about. Mark, I think you're amazing. But Brad says you're terrible. I don't know. Ob says, yes, Sue, get living. Too much talk of recovery and not living can sometimes be dangerous. My opinion, of course. And then, Sue, when you get caught up with every meeting you go to and you hear different opinions and advice, sometimes we can get lost and get caught up with trying to figure ourselves out. And you can go your own way. And then Sherry says, Mark is being usual cheeky. And Sue is definitely half. Okay. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to hint to that with the gambling for a second, because I know we talk about the boiling point. We talk about the last thing that kind of ended it. And I think it was the fact that I gravitated to that because I had nothing going on. I was just, there were a lot of things wrong. Let me put it that way. But needless to say, for me to have such a horrible addiction with gambling wasn't great. Wasn't great at all. And the thing is, when it takes an audit, so you're going through all this and you're going through divorce, and then you get a notice from the IRS saying, hey, guess what? You're being audited. Yeah. If that ended up being that telltale sign that, hey, John, what you're doing is destroying you, done. That's the message I needed. So, and I know how bad and how addictive and horrible that behavior is. It's tough because I have a lot of friends who enjoy gambling. I have friends who enjoy going to the casino or going to play whatever. But I know where my line is. And I know I certainly can't go back over that line. Because it was horrible. It was horrible for sure. Sue says, I'm an old-timer enjoying life. Sherry says, nice, Sue. Obs is an old-timer as well. Ob says, Sue, be humble and don't get caught up being lifted up and having that attention you're receiving from others that make you feel good. Because sometimes you can be dropped off and traded for another newcomer. Follow me? Hearing old-timer dad is good. I think that is also a parallel thought of what we were talking about, owning yourself, owning your emotions, owning your thoughts. You might have remembered me saying back in comment groups, back in Recovering Addict or Sober James or with Nicole, that your strength and love begin inside. And they do. I mean, the moment that you have things working for you is when you know that you just said it, you forget it, and you do what you do that make you feel good in life. And you don't need to gravitate or wait for those things. You're just going to do you. You're going to do the things that take care of you because you know deep down inside it's going to take care of others as well. We talk about self-love and self-care. They're very important. If we don't have self-love and self-care, we're going down a place where are we getting it? And are we getting it from places that we can trust in that sort of love, care, and respect? And I go back to this phrase. I go back to the phrase that I am love, I am loved, I am abundant. I believe that. And here's the thing. All of you, you are love, you are loved, you are abundant. You have to believe that. Because you know you're a very powerful person. You know that strength begins within you. And then you can transcend that to others, especially those that may need to hear it, that may need your love, that may need your wisdom, that may need your respect, that may need a hug in an era where we can't hug people right now because of this pandemic. If we can touch people and get them to a point where they're doing awesome things themselves, well, darn it. This is our right calling here. It is. Bob says, I like that, set and forget it. Yeah. Sarah too. Bob says that's called planting seeds. Yeah. Yeah. It's basically realizing that nothing's going to happen immediately. Everything's a work in progress. You don't know when the time is for it to come to its full fruition, but you know you're at least putting yourself in an opportunity to do something if you're going down that road. And the thing is, that's what I'm doing. That's what we're all doing. We're just planting the seed and believing in ourselves and knowing at some point some good is going to come out of that, because you know what? We're not expecting anything. We're doing it for the sake of ourselves. We're doing it for the sake of doing something to help someone or something or whatever. It's just reality. So we always say, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. That's what it's about. Where is Rex? Well, Rex is looking cantankerous over in the corner. But this isn't Ask Me Anything, an AMA, live Q&A, and I sure as heck didn't want this to feel like what the heck. I'll bring Rex over here for a second. Hold on. Hold that thought. Gives me a chance to tell a story about this character. Because as far as I'm concerned, this character is now 1 year old for me. I got Rex as a Christmas gift from some dear friends last Christmas. And here's this stuffed Triceratops in my office. He thinks he's a T-Rex, but he's not. And it's like, yeah, here's something that that reminds me of my friends, but yeah, it's something that puts a smile on my face. We fast forward to August. We're doing live every day in August through Live Streaming Pros. And here is this character just sitting around the office. And that's when the story arc began. It's like, okay, we're going to give this guy a name. So we named him Rex. So I couldn't remember that he was a Triceratops. He's a T-Rex. He's not a T-Rex. And that's how Rex got born. That's how the story of Rex became a thing. Became a fixture of what I do on the Friday shows for the VF Talks, but it's also become a running joke. At some point, Sherry, and I won't play it tonight, there was a student in that live every day in August. His name is Sammy, great kid. Decided he wanted to come up with a voice for this guy, and he gave 3 different takes on it. They were fantastic, and certainly once I start going into merch at some point, even for as they call it, shiggles, there'll be some some Rex related merch for sure. Sherry's thanking me for Rex. Sue says, "Thank you for what you do. Loved it, Sue. Anytime. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you've been watching the episodes. I'm glad that you're part of the groups that I'm part of. And when the Discord comes up, I hope you'll join the Discord as well for the venture forward. Yeah, Sammy's a great kid. Sammy's awesome. Sammy's sometimes in here, sometimes he's not. Today he's not. No big deal. Rex, do you want to go back to your perch over there in that corner over there? You want to go back to the... Okay, you want to go to bed? Okay. He wants to go to the printer. Yeah, what's really funny is he's usually really vulgar mouthed. Like he has some really, really profane... But he's been very behaved tonight. Thank you. Really? Oh, Jesus. You sit there and you think about what you just said. And I can't tell him what you just said. Give me a break. That's Rex. Let's see. Ob says, you worry me, John. With the wink. Yeah. Ob, I gotta be honest with you, I worry myself sometimes too. Keep me real. I think that's it as far as any sort of questions or any sort of points I wanted to make. If you guys have any additional questions, I'm going to stick on for a few minutes and then we'll call it an AMA or a live Q&A. Just a quick programming note: there won't be a VF Talks tomorrow night. Couple of things I have to do tomorrow, so there won't be a VF Talks tomorrow night, but there will be an episode on Tuesday. Don't know what the topic is for next Tuesday, and I have a couple of people that want to tell their story, or at least talk about a couple of ideas, couple of topics we're going to be doing in the next few weeks. So it'll be interesting to get those people on. I'm looking forward to them for sure. Not going to mention names right now because we have to still lock down a topic and a date and a time and everything. And once we get that, I will tell all of you. Ob says, don't worry, mate. I talk at the mirror. So do I. Who doesn't? You're in good company, Ob. You're in good company, my man. Yeah, so there won't be a VF Talks tomorrow night, but there will be an episode Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Sue says, are you going to have Discord? Yes. There's a Discord already set up. I just need to get it set up. It's set up. I just need to make sure the channels are up there and everything, and then I'll share it with all of you probably in time for the Tuesday episode. But yeah, there is a Discord, and we will get that up and running starting next week. Just in time for the holidays. Just in time for Christmas and Hanukkah. Hanukkah, which I think is tonight, or is it tomorrow? Might be tomorrow or might be tonight. Don't know. Ob says, can I borrow you for 5 minutes? Yeah, you can borrow me anytime you want. I'm here. Do you want to do it on here, or do you want me? I'll end and we'll talk after. Whatever you want, Ob. Your call. See, that's how honest and kind and just open we are, right? Sarah says tonight. And Sarah says, what's Discord? Discord is basically discussion service that you basically could set up and people could talk to each other. You could set up places to post things. It's basically what we like to call back in the Microsoft days like a SharePoint site, but it's more public than that. So, yeah, I'll give you details on Discord for next week. And then Ob says end, and we go on Facebook chat for 5, and I see how I can go live there. Absolutely, you got it. And I think on that, that's the end of the AMA. It's the end of the live Q&A. Certainly, if you guys have any questions over the next few days, and you're saying, I meant to ask that question during the live Q&A, the AMA. You can always ask them, whether on Facebook or YouTube or on the Discord once we have that started next week. Because, again, we're always here to help each other. That's how we remove the roadblocks that are in our way. We remove them based on others that have felt it, that have experienced those things, that can tell that story. It's what I've gravitated to. And I'm going to say this once more as far as, recovery is concerned. I'm very thankful for LT and Felice and Nav Recovering Addict. I'm very thankful for James, Sober James. I'm very thankful for Nicole, Real Recovery with Nicole. Those 3 channels have really helped me in this journey. And when you're talking about a time right now where, at least back in the middle of this year, where your AA meetings, your OA meetings, your GA meetings weren't open, the face-to-face meetings. We gravitated to whatever we had to gravitate to get the therapy, to go down the steps, to figure out what our inventory is, all of that. I'm very thankful for all of you. A lot of people that have come into my life in the last 23 months that have helped my sort of next step, my next chapter, this recovery, this resurgence, this reinvention, if you will. You guys are definitely part of that. And I am muchly, muchly thankful and indebted to you guys for that, without question. So on that, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell you at the end of every venture forward. Stay safe, stay sane, stay strong, stay sober. You're worth it. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday night at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific for the next episode. Good night.